Hi, John here again with VoWac Publishing. Welcome back. We're going to introduce you to CLOVER, which is the decoding process, the marking process of VoWac. We're just going to talk about a couple of things on this one, but I want to introduce you to what CLOVER is, and then we will, in the next few videos, we'll talk about what all these vernacular is. You'll find CLOVER in the Handbook of Teacher Tips. Explains it very well on page 54 in the Handbook of Teacher Tips. So if you have this as a resource, you can refer to that. It also has it in the beginning of the book, but on page 54 it has a really nice graphic to kind of really explain and break it all down for you. We'll talk a little bit about CLOVER. One of the things that we deal with in VoWac, and what we tell teachers, what I tell students, is that this decoding process is kind of like a chameleon. What's unique about a chameleon is that it changes color according to its surroundings, its environment. So depending upon where it's at will determine the kind of shade that it takes to kind of camouflage it. Words really aren't any different when you talk about decoding. Words are kind of like a chameleon. Depending upon where the vowels are at, help determine what the word says. And so that's kind of the analogy that we use. So with that in mind, let's talk about what CLOVER is. It's actually an acronym that represents the 6 most commonly used vowel patterns in the English language. We teach them in the order and frequency in which they're used as the language is developed. So this isn't the right order, but this is what CLOVER stands for. We talk about closed syllables, L consonant, silent E, open syllables, vowel teams, that magic E, that silent E, and R control. And so that's what CLOVER stands for. We're going to go ahead and start with what we teach first, which is in lesson 18 in VoWac. So we're into like the 3rd week of school, and we are already going to be introducing kids to open syllables. That's the first thing that we teach. And I get to my open graphic here. Kind of turn this over, get it backwards. So an open syllable by definition is very simple. Simply a word that has a long vowel sound that ends with a vowel. Now, don't get this confused that it's a long vowel syllable. It's an open syllable. It has a long vowel sound. It ends with a vowel. So it can be a word or a syllable, but it's an open syllable. Like, for example, the word go is a 1-syllable word. It ends with a vowel, and it has a long vowel sound. When we mark these, we very simply put a macron over the vowel to take on the long vowel sound, and we mark it with a capital O underneath. Now, an open syllable can go on and on and on for as long as you have air in your lungs. Go, and you can do this until your chest caves in. It'll take on that sound. He, me, and those are open syllables. Now, to back that up, or to follow it up, in lesson 19 in VoWac, which is the very next day after you teach open syllables, then we introduce closed syllables. Closed syllables are very simply a syllable that takes on a short vowel sound. There's something here that cut off the vowel. You have to get to this sound. And I guess I used go here, and we can go back to that. Go, and you can put a T here. You got. We have M-A. If you had just M-A, it would say may. Okay, it's not a word, it's a syllable. But if you put the consonant here, we have to get to that sound, man. Do is not an open syllable. We're going to talk about that right after we get done with this. And maybe this is not the example, but if we put this syllable or this consonant here, we get to dot. To mark these, we very simply put a breve over this, and we mark it with a capital C to indicate that it's closed. Put a breve, capital C, breve, capital C. And that's open and closed syllables, so it's really quite simple. So what do you do then if we have open and closed? Pretty simple, cut and dried. What do you do then if you have a word, and we'll go back to this do that I had here. So I've got this word. It does not say do, it says do. It has that oo sound. So it doesn't follow the open or closed rule. So it's a rule breaker, a red word, in this case a green word, but a rule breaker, a pirate word, a coyote word, whatever you want to call them, they're rule breakers. They're sight words. Very simply, when we mark this, we put a box around it. Okay, it's that simple. This does not have the short O sound. It says of. Put a box around it. So if I were to give you a sentence like this, and I said Fido is a big hero, and that's part, we'll get into the dictation part of things, but just as an example, if I were dictating Fido is a big hero, and I said, Clover mark this. What we want you to do then is we teach kids to syllabicate first and then clover mark. By doing that, it'll prevent them from making silly mistakes later on, because kids tend to rush through things. They want to try and do it as fast as they can. And this will hopefully prevent some of that. So if we were to clover mark all of this, we would take and put a slash through Fido, open, open, is normally is taught as a sight word in kindergarten, but the vowel is decodable. So this is actually a closed word. This word a, pronounced a when we typically call it a word, is actually pronounced This is a boxed word. I'm going to talk a little bit about this when I get to the rest of the sentence here. This is closed, open, open. Sometimes when you do this dictation, you have to over-enunciate. So if I were just starting out, I might say something like, Fido is a big hero, to make sure that kids can hear exactly what it is that you're saying and what you want them to get as far as some of the syllabication. So that's where we're at with how we would clover mark this sentence. Let's talk a little bit about a. Again, when you're doing the dictation, Fido is a big hero, not a big hero. The word A, or the letter A, is pronounced A. If I were giving you a grade, A, B, C, D, then it's pronounced A. Or if I'm pronouncing the first letter of the alphabet, it's pronounced A. But it's when it's used as an indefinite article, A, and the, it is pronounced I didn't make the rule. Talk to Merriam-Webster, but it is actually a boxed syllable. So that's what we do with open syllables, closed syllables, and then words or syllables that don't follow the pattern. So do, of, those would be boxed words. So that's a brief intro to Clover. Open syllables, closed syllables. Check it out. Practice this. You'll be on top of your game. Thanks. We'll see you next time.